Hey all, welcome to Simply QA. So in this session we will see about software development life cycles, its phases and also various models that is involved in SDLC. So guys, while develop an application, it's not like once the application is developed it will directly hand over to the client. So multiple phases will be involved while developing an application from start to end. So here we will see what are the phases involved along with an example. So consider you are going to build a house in a year, and assume what are the steps you will be doing while building a house. Okay, so the first step we will do is like you will find an engineer and you will explain your requirements to that particular person, right? So what he will do, he will analyze your requirements, that like what kind of house you need, what are your requirements, whether you need an individual duplex or a multi-story house, right? So the first step in developing application is also same, right? So first one is requirement analysis. Here uh, the business analyst or a project manager will analyze the requirements from the product owner, and further it will be moved into further steps. So the first step is like analyzing the requirement, what actually the client wants. Okay, so here what will be your next step? So the second step will be design, right? So once you have conveyed your requirement to the engineer, what you will do, you will be expecting a design plan for your house which will be done by them. Like you will say your imagination and they will come up with a plan according to your requirement, right? The same will be done in the application development also. That is, once the requirement is once the people got the requirement from the client, they will start with the design phase. That is, as per the requirement, they will uh, design that particular application. This part is done by the UI UX designer. So now, once the design plan is approved by you, what actually the next step is? So the engineer will start the work with a set of workers, and they will be starting the actual house construction, right? The same will happen in application development also. That is, once the design phase is done, the developers will start developing the application, and they will develop a step by step module. They will split the module and they will develop an application. So here, once the house construction is done, what will be your next step? You will go and verify whether the entire house is built as per your requirement, right? Which is nothing but a testing phase in a software application. That is, once the development is done, the testing team will test the application whether every module is working fine and end-to-end flow is also working fine, and also whether the application is built as per the user requirement, right? So once you have seen your house, right, what will be the next step? So once every work is done and the testing, everything is done, and you're happy with the house, right, which is built. So the next step will be that you will be getting the house from the set of people which we have worked. That is, they will hand over the entire house to you, and the payment will be done, right? So this is like the deployment phase. That is, once the testing is done and if the testers approve that the application is in um, well work is in well working condition, you will next go to the deployment phase. That is, you will deploy the application and you will be handovering to the client. So these are all the important phases of developing an application, guys. So the final stage is maintenance. That is, even though we have tested the application thoroughly and everything is working fine, obviously if an application is developed, we will need a maintenance phase. That is, if something breaks due to heavy load of users, we need to analyze that. Or if some users want any additional requirement, we have to take care of those things, right? That will be taken care in maintenance phase. So basically these are the 6 phases which is involved in SDLC, software development lifecycle model. Guys, it's always important to understand who are the persons that is involved in each phases of SDLC. So let's go one by one. In analysis phase, the product owner will give the requirement to the project manager or business analyst, and business analyst will convey the requirement to the entire team. So in design phase, the UI designer will take care of the design, and the system architects will guide the UI designers to perform the design as per the requirement. And in development phase, developers will play a major role for both front end and back end. In testing phase, set of QA engineers or testers will be there, and a lead or a QA lead or a QA manager will be there to guide them. for the testing phase. And in deployment phase, obviously, it will be take care of the DevOps team and data administration team. And finally, in maintenance phase, everyone will be there. That is testers, supporting managers, and obviously users will be there since they are the one who are going to give the suggestion for improvising our application, right? So these are all the key persons who are involved in each phases of SDLC. So next we will see about the various SDLC models. Guys, there are multiple SDLC model. That is waterfall model, V-shaped, RAD model, prototype, spiral model, incremental and iterative model, and agile model. So out of these, in our day-to-day life, we will come across two major models. One is waterfall model and another one is agile model. So in this session, we will see about these two models in depth. Let's see what actually the waterfall model is and when we should use the waterfall model. So guys, waterfall model is nothing but a step-by-step process of developing an application. For example, we have seen the multiple phases of SDLC, right? So in waterfall model, once each and every stage is completed, then only we could able to move to the next stage. And also one more point to be noted in waterfall is like once the requirement is given by the user and the requirement is finalized, right, you can't go back and change the requirement or you can't alter any requirement. So once the requirement is finalized, it's freezed and it can't be changed further until the application is developed fully. Okay. To understand this more in clearer way, consider the same example of constructing a building, right? So you have asked the engineer to construct a 2 BHK building, and one plan is also finalized, and the work is also started, right? So after 2 or 3 months, you are thinking like if you get one more room in your house, it will be better. So you are going back to your engineer and asking him to add one more room into that particular house plan. So that is not possible via waterfall model because already you have finalized a 2 BHK plan and the work has been started and nothing can be altered in middle or till the end. So right, this is called waterfall model. And when to use this waterfall model? Since these restrictions are there, if the project is very short, assume you are not constructing an entire building, you are constructing some car shed in your building. That is a very small kind of requirement, right? So in that case, you can go to waterfall model. Similarly, in the application, when a when a project is very short and the requirement is very short, you can go to the waterfall model. And also, the requirement should not change consistently. That is, once you are very clearer with the requirement of the application, what you want, then we can go to waterfall model. Or if you're unclear about the requirements or like you will be adding some more feature to your requirements, then waterfall model is not applicable. Let's see the advantages and disadvantages of this waterfall model. So guys, if we see about the advantages, waterfall is basically a simple model and also it requires less number of resources because in each stage only the particular team will work so that the number of resources required will also be less. And also since we are freezing the requirement and the requirement stage itself, like finding default will be less, meaning the testing team will not test the application parallelly from the design stage. Once the entire development is completed, then only the testing will begin. So the finding the defects parallelly will be less and also the investment will be less, meaning the testers will be hired at later stage only. Once the application is fully developed, then the testers will be hired and they will be testing the application, right? So the investment of finding the testers and investing them is also less. So these are the few advantages of waterfall model and it has disadvantages too. That is, if the project is a complex project, right, then this particular model will not work because the complex project or the larger project will always involve like often change in the requirement, right? So in that case, freezing requirement will not work. And also requirement changes are not allowed during development. Yes, this is one of the major disadvantages of this waterfall model. That is, if user have to add anything extra, that is not at all possible in this waterfall model. And also if there is any mistake in the requirement after freezing, right, then rework will obviously it will require rework because if there is some mistake in the requirement, obviously the end result will not as per the end result will not be produced as per the user requirement. So again, user have to alter the requirement, and this entire phases will be gone through again, right? So this is a kind of rework, which is the biggest disadvantages of this waterfall model. Let's see about the agile model. And guys, this is one of the most important model, and nowadays most of the companies are using agile model only. So here the entire project is divided into smaller iterations or called smaller parts. The each of these iteration will last from 1 week to 4 weeks, and each iteration will go through entire SDLC process. To make it clear, I will explain it with the same example. No, so while constructing a building, there are two options, right? You can give the plan, you can approve the plan, and you can give specific time period, that is 1 year, and you can come and see the entire house which is built after 1 year. That is one way, which is called waterfall model, which is achieved through waterfall model. In between, you can't change any requirement, you can't go and verify any alterations there, right? But if you follow agile model, assume in first iteration you ask your engineer to build your living room. So in that iteration, this entire process they will go through. That is, they will get that plan design for that living room. They will start constructing the living room. Once the living room is constructed, you can go and check whether that particular living room alone is then constructed as per your requirement. So if you have any additional requirement for the living room, you can give then and there only, so that it will be easier for them to adapt to that requirement before building the other parts of the house, right? So this is called agile model. Same in the application as well. Each and individual modules are developed in each iteration, and user can verify those those modules, and if any changes or alteration is required, that will be taken care in the next iteration. So when we can use this agile model? So if the project is complex and if it involves multiple modules, then agile model will be a better option. And if the requirement of the project is changing frequently, assume you're not very clear about the requirement, that is how the entire application looks like, and you need time to think about it, but you similarly at the same time you have to start the process, developing the application as well, then agile model will be one of the best option. And one more thing is, like, if the requirements not fully finalized at the initial stage, that is, you're not 100% sure about the entire requirement, then we can go to the agile model. Now let's see the advantages and disadvantages of agile model. Guys, if we see about the advantages, that is, the changes are acceptable anytime, right? No, because in we can change the requirement, or we can give any add-on to the requirement at any time in any iteration in agile model. And also we will give frequent delivery to customer. In waterfall model, it is a kind of one time delivery, but in agile model, since we are following multiple iterations, the deliverables will be also be multiple one. And also the communication will be client with will be effective, and it will take place often, right? So in each iteration we will communicate with multiple times with the client, and we will come to know about their alteration in the requirements, right? So effective communication is also possible in agile model. If we see about the disadvantages, since agile model is a kind of faster and faster delivery model, so the documentation, that is a formal documentation part, will be very less in the agile model. So which means once the project is completed and handed over to other team, it will be difficult for them to follow up and handle. This is one of the disadvantages. And in agile model, it's always advisable to have experienced developers or testers to perform or develop an application, because since it is a kind of faster delivery and it always involves a kind of complex project, the experienced person is needed for this particular model. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of agile model, and hope we are clear with the SDLC process, waterfall and agile model. If you need to know about the other models as well, do let me know. We will create a separate video for that. Thank you.